Hey everyone, and welcome to Brad the DM, Strixhaven, Year 1, Session number 10, Into the Sedgemoor. This is going to be the final session of Year 1 of the Strixhaven campaign that I've set up so far. You know, the outline for all the stuff in the book, blah blah blah. So yeah, just wanted to, kick off with my title card, which this is actually a picture that I took at Hocking Hills on a trip that I went on a couple of years ago with my buddies for the 2023 guys trip. Basically went down there, walked the paths, took some pictures, stayed at basically an Airbnb or whatever. I don't know, Matt got it taken care of for us. But yeah, this visual is, I believe, the Devil's Toilet Bowl or something like that. Ideally, if I'm incorrect, I will double check my pictures. I will put the caption below. Cool? Yeah. Basically, this is just a little visual foreshadowing for later in the episode. But yeah, so let's just get to it. The session starts with a little scene I like to call "We Need to Meet." The party received a message via their message earrings, quote unquote, "We need to talk," from Earthmactalk. Again, really quick, the message earrings are basically the spell message, but in earring form. They have, they have a charge for the spell message, or you can focus your own spell slots through them to make them more effective. Longer range, more words, etc., etc. It's something that I came up with. I didn't base on anything, so yeah. There you go. Anyway. Darb was, outside practicing fighting stances, with his short sword, with his glaive, etc. Not really a big deal what everyone's doing. I'm just establishing, just for the cinematic thing of, okay, like, message received, and I'm off. You've seen it in, like, a bunch of movies. Avengers, heist movies, etc. Sarah was doing research in the library. She slams a tome closed and just proceeds to meet up with Earthmactalk. Burgle was, working on sheet music, writing something, practicing something, etc. Puts his notes away and rushes off. And Kima was meditating. Doing the cool, I'm a cool martial artist, so I can meditate under, a waterfall or something like that. I don't know. Or just sitting on a rock and just, oh hey, message received, time to go. Again, these are like mostly outlines, but also I'm adding in my little cinematic flair just for a bit of fun. So everyone met up, and now we're talking about assessing the situation. Earthmactalk speaking, I believe. As you all know, the Sedgemoor and caverns have been closed while a proper investigation is underway. That's the right thing to do, isn't it? Darb asked. Yes, I believe it is. What could happen? What could happen it is. I just worry what could happen in the meantime. Really quick, just for reference, Earthmactalk is a half-orc like Darb, so I'm trying to make him sound a bit more like intellectual and smart. And Darb, he was a farm boy, but he's not as confident and intellectually capable as Earthmactalk. And I just personally fumbled over those words a couple of times, so my apologies for that. Sarah shook her head. Are you suggesting that we go in there? We don't know where the corruption comes from or what we could be walking into. And everyone took a moment to think on that. The animals they'd fought were one thing, but walking into ground zero for, this corruption that's been, turning, so many things evil, doesn't feel like a great plan. Again, it's that cliche moment in the movies where, like, guys, like, really think about what you are being asked to do. Do you want to do this? And a time to act. Darb stood up. I'll go. And, like, of course, the cliche, main character, oh, I'm a big beefy man, I gotta fight stuff, stands up first, And Sarah has a counterpoint for that. I'm sorry, Darb. Do you remember the cave? Merrick? The infection? The war pick in your side? And honestly, that did give Darb a bit of pause, and he lightly touched where the wound had been. He's been healed, so he's good, but yeah. And he just looked at her and he said, I do, but I can't stand by. Like Erzmiktok said, anything could happen. And the room went silent for a couple seconds. Sarah just trying to think of something else to say to, impart how great the situation was. Kima was just, unsure what to say herself, so she just sat quietly, and Burgle was, in thought for a couple seconds. Burgle, pushed himself off of the chair that he was sitting on. He looked from Sarah to Darb. And then he said, and he took a moment. He was clearly collecting himself to say something important. I'm with you, Darb. I'm terrified, but I'm with you. You've always had my back, and I've got to return the favor. And like Erzmiktok said, and you said, this is really important, and it could be a serious thing. So I'm I'm right behind you. Metaphorically speaking, I'll be somewhere behind you, but yeah. And Sarah just shook her head at that, and looked from Darb, Darb and Burgle back and forth really quick. I'm not arguing against the plan, but I want you all to be aware of the danger, Sarah said. We could be walking into 100 sturges, rats, boars, crocodiles, other monsters. Are you prepared for that? And that gave Burgle a bit of pause. He was like, oh. But he, looked at Darb and he got a bit of strength from him. He went, I am. And then all eyes turned to Kima. She had just been sitting there thinking and, meditating on it, and she just casually said, yeah, you know what, I want to help too. I'm not as invested as you guys were with all this stuff, but you know what, I see the need to do this, so I'm going to try. I want to help. And also, it's going to be a cool story. Nobody really laughed at that, but they appreciated the attempt at levity. I didn't really know what to do with Kima's character for this, so, I just went with I wanted to help too, and I just ad-libbed the, cool story, yada yada. Useful information. Erzmiktok nodded sadly. Thank you. I may have information that could prove useful. He unfurled a pair of maps onto the table. One map was the Sedgemoor itself. The second was the caverns that they had already explored. I used the Sedgemoor caverns map in the last thing. I should probably have it here really quick side by side just for you guys to see, so hopefully I added that in. Poof. One map established that. After some research, we have identified the point of intersection between the Sedgemoor and the caverns. The Eternal Pool, which would explain some of the flooding in the caverns. I should have used Erzmiktok voice, but my bad. Darb looked over, the two maps, as they were laid over each other or whatever. Really, tracing lines and doing the general leader whatever thing. So we start our search there, and then I guess we work our way outward. What about the swampland? Won't that hinder us? Ordinarily, yes, but with waders of water walking, you will be able to pass through more easily. though they only have charge for roughly 30 minutes. You know, and then Darp again. Well, then I guess we'll have to be quick then. Is there anything else that we should know? You know, and Urza McTalk said, working through the night, Professor Trotsky or Veralda or the three of us really could have the mixture for you tomorrow. I would not suggest talking to her about what we are going to do. We are preparing our solution in case more issues like what has happened come up. Again, I ad-libbed a bit. Just letting you know. Cool. Level up. The party at fourth level, so I'm just summarizing what they got here. Darb took 1 level in Barbarian. Basically training to push himself physically, but also maybe the infection awakened something within him. That's a new thought that I had. And like, I like the, awaken something within him, because the Barbarian thing is what set him on this path. Some of the madness from Grumsh, the orc god of like war and many other unpleasant things. But yeah, also the messing with the infection again works too. Also, he's the fighter front lines guy. First level Barbarian, you get unarmored defense. I forget how it works exactly. But basically, you don't have to wear heavy armor. You don't need heavy armor to have good defense, rather. Sarah gained the Spell Sniper feat. At 4th level, you can either take on more ability points or feats. She also picked up the Mirror Image spell as well as Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast was I believe, part of the Spell Sniper feat. I should go over that at some point. Or you guys can look into that yourself. I'm just trying to get this done quick. Burgle took on Magic Initiate Druid for the spell Good Berries. Basically, you can spawn 10 berries that recover 1 HP each, and make you feel like you've had a full meal for like a whole day. So, your day starts at 6 a.m. and if you're working to like 10 p.m., you don't have to eat it all that day because you had a good berry. It's pretty cool. It's like Zenzu beans from Dragon Ball Z. The cantrips Frostbite and Poison Spray as well. I believe both cantrips. Again, from the Druid Initiate class. Because he had the interest in changing majors. Unfortunately for me, spoilers, nothing comes from that. Whoops. It was a plot line that got abandoned. I'm going to own up to that. I'm just letting you know here. And then Kima took on the Healer feat and acquired a Healer's Bag. Basically, she's a backup healer. And I'm realizing with her that I should have made her a different monk subclass. I believe it's Path of Mercy. Basically, I just went with Dragon, Way of the Ascended Dragon, because I wanted to explore that. And then I learned about kobolds later who love dragons and would have been a better choice. But I goofed up on that one, so I'm going to apologize for that too. Sorry, Kima. At the end of the series, I'll talk about all of my little personal missteps that I didn't like. Right. Enter the Sedgemoor. The party meets Urza McTalk outside the Sedgemoor. Urza McTalk hands out a flask to each member. Here's the counter agent to the ooze. I couldn't get waiters, but there should be some within Sedgemoor. There are various cabins stationed at the docks, etc., that should contain equipment for traveling. I would suggest not using the boats, just in case any of the official staff are on hand. You want to be as subtle as possible. Right. Blah blah blah. Alright, Darb, just put a hand on his shoulder, smiling, Alright, thanks. Keep close. We'll call if we need you. And, just watch out for staff members. It's like late at night for me. Burgle passed out good berries. Basically enough nutritional value for one whole day, one whole meal. day, whatever. You get the point. And heal 1 HP. They're also, like the backup idea is like, oh hey, if somebody goes down, just squish one into their mouth. I want to say they're like, I imagine them as the size of like blueberries or grapes. So yeah, I would count that as a DM. In case any druids get involved in my game. Kima holds up her healer bag to emphasize her healing training if it's needed. Basically, I guess a little like backup explanation for that too is, as a monk, she's picked up some like sports therapy, occupational therapy stuff, just in case like anyone she's training with gets hurt. Like, somebody brains their ankle or gets kicked in the face or whatever happened during the Rose stage play. Alright, this is the Sedgemoor map. Basically, the party will be starting at the southern end, close to where that central dock is. I just wanted to put it here for reference from the book, so people have some idea on where they're going. I believe as I go through the various areas, I mark where we start and where we end up, which I think we'll see in the next slide. Yeah, okay. Then just on the right, I split the pictures in half, so like there's the southern half and then there's the northern half. So the party starts at S1 dock. Moves northeast to check second dock for boats to help cross the swampland. Or checking for the waders of water walking. Again, 30 minutes, they let you walk on water. And the reason the party aren't interested in them is because that darker gray area, like next to the docks, that is technically water, is more like muddy swampland. It acts as difficult terrain, which means it takes twice as much movement speed to get through it. So every square is 5 feet. So really you have to move 10 feet in order to pass one square. Just for reference. If you do not have the waders of water walking. But yeah, Dar will be taking point. Sarah will be falling behind with the map. Kima and Burgle following behind them. Basically, again, I'm just establishing the like marching order. More for like cinematic feel. Because a lot of this stuff, obviously, as you probably picked up at this point, is going to be mind's eye theater. So yeah. This is just something I threw in. Casual perception check, DC 10 for anything of note. And I went in descending order. I tried to, write like a little bit of story stuff, cinematic, whatever. Burgle rolled a 19. He can hear what sounds like wolves or dogs howling in the distance, and he tells the party. Hopefully we find those waders, because it seems like we'll have to be even more careful than we might have thought. That nervous laughter, yada yada. Dar rolled a 15. He notes the research sheds on the central island. Maybe there's something we can use inside. Kima rolled a 12. Kima notes the lack of corruption, so things here are safe for now. Like if the ooze was here, stuff would be darker and scarier, and they might, fight a monster or two already. Again, like rats or the Sturgis is what I would potentially throw here if someone had rolled like a 1 or something. And then Sarah rolled a 6. She paused mid-stride. She felt eyes on the party but couldn't see anyone. This is like the Friday the 13th horror movie cliche where like Jason's behind a tree or something and then just like ducks back quickly. Because there's going to be a boss fight later. I'll tell you all about that when we get there. Yeah. Basically, like I think I've said before, with perception checks and stuff like that, 10 plus, you'll note something of interest. Whoever rolls the highest will note the most, like, plot relevant thing. Like, oh hey, like there might be bad guys coming up that we have to fight. Darb's thing was research sheds because, again, the waiters of water walking plot relevant. The corruption thing from Kima. It's like a detail you might miss if you don't think about it. And it's there roll below 10. So moving to the central island, and really quick, if you can see on the map there, basically, I've got the green connecting to the red with the black lines. I did that just for emphasis. I don't know if it's going to be visible or not. I'm just saying that here just so it's established. So green is where we're starting from. Red is where we are moving to. They found waders in the watershed. Enough for everyone. Basically, I'm saying they're going to be like little gem things that you can socket onto your boots, sandals, or if you're a halfling, bare feet. Don't ask me how. Just go with it. It's magic. It works. As they make their way to the center, two wolf-like creatures come from behind a large stump.
Smell more magic. Do you steal our magic? We kill.
Alright, this is the warg stat block. In the picture, just ignore the little goblin guy on the back. Basically, these are evil wolf-like creatures that are attracted to magic, as they noted with their dialogue and such. Just realized they don't speak common, so it wouldn't have been clear to the party, I guess, that they were saying, oh hey, we're here to steal magic and stuff like that. It would have been evil growls and stuff, technically. But noteworthy features, armor class 13, natural armor, hit points 26, 40, 10 plus 4, keen hearing and smell for detection, bite, attack. That's basically it. So basically I'd say treat this as if your party ran into like wolves or something. The warg combat turn number 1. Basically, as I do with all the combats, I'm going to have each combat turn on one slide if I can. Because trust me, later in the game, it gets a lot of characters involved. But yeah. Kima moves Darb, Fire Breath Org A, dealing 7 damage. 3 from Fire Breath, and then 4 extra from Fury of the Small. Basically, Fury of the Small is if a creature of one size larger than you, if you attack one, hit one, you can do so much extra damage based on your level. It's a goblin feature, and I believe a kobold feature. I'm not sure about gnomes, and certainly not dwarves. But yeah. So, I can't think of any cool dialogue for that. Moving forward. Burgle casts Bardic Inspiration on Kima, and then Frostbite on Warg A as well. He, basically strummed a little tune, sending a chill through the air. I would say it's like Brooks' icy attacks, because that's the best metaphor I've got. But the big thing is it confers disadvantage on attack. Sarah went for Chromatic Orb on Warg A, hitting it for 18 acid damage. That certainly got its attention. Basically, she held up her crystal orb, channeled the magic, it hit it, and, well, very focused on her because of the magic and the serious amount of damage. Warg A fled the battle.
Too strong, must flee.
Basically, I think it said they like weak prey. Like goblins generally are, but sometimes, as you saw in the picture with the stat block, they do control them. Darb, hold action, charisma check. We won't follow you. We won't follow you, and you can tend to your friend. Or B runs off with, with a growl. So yeah, I think that was somewhere between the two islands. I can't remember exactly. But yeah. At the end of that combat, Warg fled. Darb made the obvious assessment. Alright, we're not alone out here. dungeons. I guess we proved too strong for them. I chuckled lightly because, in a nervous situation, that's what you do to feel better. Alright, so, Dog gave the orders. Alright, scout the sheds quick, and let's move out in case they want to regroup. Because, sometimes they will come back. In the north shed, there are 2 potions of healing. They were passed over to Darv and Kima. Because, they were the tank. They're going to be on the front lines, basically. The south shed held moss and fungi collection kits. Sarah and Burgle took them up for, spell component collection later and such. I'm not tracking spell components, but, it's just a nice little flavor thing. And also Burgle, has an interest in nature, so yada yada. Alright, and then Sarah, after like the 5 minutes or so that took them to collect everything, they moved forward again. Sarah's saying, alright. Sarah's saying, alright, let's continue northwest before the waiters wear out. And basically the fight was in S3, where we are starting at. I'm moving on to S7, where I'm saying the Eternal Pool was, I think. Under fire. The party, approaches and stops to assess from the small island, in the bottom right of the picture. Suddenly an arrow is loosed and the party separate. If you can't quite see where the 2 circles are, I assessed them as stumps. I forget if it established the height for the stumps, but I think it was like maybe 5 to 10 feet. And it's, just a general good thing for cover. Darb and Kima behind the north stump, Sarah and Burgle behind the southern stump. And then the red circle in the upper left is the villain start. And then DS is Darb start, Kima start, Sarah start, and Burgle start. Because I think from here on, I do use the maps for reference. I'm not going to hold you, tightly to maps. This is, one of the first times where we actually had some, okay, we're moving from A to B. Rather than, oh, hey, we're on the row stage, we're in a hallway of the library, having fights, etc., etc. Running interference. Alright, perception check. Darb and Kima can see the shooter near some shrubbery on that small island, where the villain started. God dang it, man. I'm sorry, I'm slowly yawning. Kima offers to rush him so Darb can sneak up on him, but Darb shoots that down. I'm the bigger target. He can't ignore me. And again, whispering because it's a bit later at night and don't want to wake people, trying to rest up and stuff like that, even though I shouldn't. They shouldn't hear me, whatever. Alright, so... yeah. Kima, just look back with a worried frown. I've got one more breath attack, okay? Do not get reckless out there. Basically, she's just establishing that to say, hey, I can at least give you some cover, potentially. Brad note, the villain is named Bellatar, basically an undead archer raised by the ooze. I borrowed it from a third-party material, and I can post that information later. I forgot to put it in the show, but I will have one final bit at the end to record extra. Alright, really quick, just to establish, this is the secondary source book that I was using. As far as I can tell, it's a third-party creation. It is called The Game Master's Book of Villains, Minions, and Their Tactics. Published by Topics Media Lab and Media Lab Books. Basically, I'd gotten this as a Christmas present a couple of years back. I read through it because it is a series of like bosses for various campaigns and such, as well as a couple of one-shots. I read about Thalon the Force Master, and I thought it sounded like a good character that I could slot into the campaign here, basically as an undead golem or guardian for the Black Ooze. Okay, here we have the stat block for Thalon the Forest Master. Uh, Again, I took him from this book, and I'm just posting the image as well as the stat block used within, just for reference. The big things to note, armor class of 15 because of studded leather armor. Hit points 52 or 8d8 plus 16. Movement speed of 40 feet. And his actions, include multi-attack, 2 attacks with a short sword or longbow. Yeah, that's basically it. Like I said, he's a golem or guardian for the black ooze, because some had seeped into his unmarked grave that is nearby. I didn't go as much into detail in that in the session recap, but that's the backstory. Turn number 1. Alright, Bellatar taking his surprise action. He hit Star for 14 damage, 7 piercing and 7 poison damage. He shot, I believe, 2 arrows, and the first missed, but the second hit, and he does piercing and poison damage, based on the stat block from the book. I'll bit of hindsight, but I will have it on that slide established who he is, and I'll work that in before this turn. Alright, so Burgle used Healing Word because it's a ranged healing spell. Unfortunately, a bit weaker than something like Healing Touch, I believe. And he gave out Bardic Inspiration. I assume to Darb or Sarah, one of the two. I should have written it down. Alright, Darb went for Booming Blade and used his action surge, hitting Bellatar for 16 total damage. Yeah, and then Kima moving up behind Darb roughly, give or take. And used Breath of the Dragon, dealing 1 damage. He passed the save, etc., etc. Sarah cast Tasha's Mind Whip for 18 damage, and his action is limited for that. I forget if I've talked about Tasha's Mind Whip, but really quick, it is an intelligence saving throw based on caster's spell save DC. If the victim does not pass, they are limited in what they can do on their next turn. They can do one thing, like one action. No bonus action, no reaction. They can either attack or regular action or move. That's it. And then Bellatar, normal bow attack thanks to a miss. I think he was still shooting at Darb. Turn number 2. Burgle cast Shatter for 13 damage, and then Darb basically took him down with his glaive attack. Just ran in, just slice and dice. He spun with the slash, falling, and then Bellatar, spun with the slash, falling into the muddy soup of the swamp area. Combat over. This is a bit of cutscene. He's not really dead. Much of the ooze has left his body from the cuts, and like Merrick in the last chapter, he got sick and just out of his body. Now he's not violent and actually talks. Right, there we go. Bellatar's end. Darb stood over him ready to take his head off, either with a short sword or glaive. Wait! Darb was surprised by that, stopping short. I was dead, and the corruption seeped into my grave, raising me. Please, allow me to destroy it. And Darb frowned, looking at the undead man in front of him. Basically, I guess if I have to describe him, he's like an elf, and he's very pale, like he hasn't seen light in a long time, because he's been dead for a number of years. Darb frowned, and handed the flask of antidote to him. Like, whenever Bellatar took the flask from Darb, he had a bit of an angry glower on his face, like he hated it and he was going to smash on the ground. they quickly popped the top and poured it down his throat, and it cried out like it was burning him. Like, imagine the vampire cliche of holy water, and it's kind of like that, I would say. You know, and he just looked at her. That will do. You know, he coughed. You know, Bellatar walked into the pool, pouring out the flask, and it was clearing the corruption. You know, as Bellatar marched into, you know, the swirling pool, you know, Dark called out to him, "We'll find you and give you a proper burial." And yeah. And then we got the cleansing. Again, just another picture. Same picture as before, because I have the title picture after this. You know, the others stepped forward toward the, you know, internal pool, emptying their flasks into the swirling waters. With each pass, the pool cleared up until eventually a dark bubble rose from the water and popped. The water cleared out. I'm trying to think of some analogy, but I got nothing. Like, I know there's stuff, I just can't think of it. You know, basically just, the water was dark, murky, clearly evil intent, like, I don't know. And, you know, as it swirled, it started clearing up. You know, moving on from that, curious. You know, Sarah was watching the surrounding area and noticed a leather-bound book on the ground nearby. Picking it up, the book was clearly waterlogged. You know, Sarah saw some notation about certain dates and events. You know, these would line up with the events of the year. Orientation, the frog races, the stage play, the stew, etc. You know, there wasn't much, just noting like, oh hey, you know, after the mimic thing, after the orientation, you know, add more to the mixture or something, you know. More concentrated dose required. You know, frog races, you know, has this effect on wildlife. You know, inside the cover was a single word, Mergaxer. You know, Sarah frowned, pocketing the book. I think it's time we left. You know, a bit of post-credits. You know, just to wrap up stuff. The druids and clerics, you know, wrapped their investigation into the Sedgemoor, and things calmed down. You know, there were no more attacks. The party searched the caverns and eventually found Bellatar, carrying him out on a stretcher under a burial cloth. You know, Darvin made the promise, "We will find you, we'll give you a proper burial," etc., etc. Bellatar was laid to rest. He was a former student who had gone missing many years ago. I'm just giving the backstory of, this is another victim of Mergaxer who was buried somewhere in the Sedgemoor. You know, the ooze affected him and kind of made him, turned him into a guardian for the Eternal Pool. So that's why, you know, he rose and attacked and yada yada. Bit more. School's out. Alright, you know, the rest of the semester was pretty uneventful. Dar was finishing up his packing when Sarah came to his door. Really quick, these events took place during spring break. And then this is just like, I don't know, a month or so after that. You know, wrapping up the semester. Sorry, I'm yawning again. Alright, I just wanted to check in before summer break. I couldn't get anything else out of that book, unfortunately. And I wanted to talk to you about something else, though. You know, Darb nodded, you know, gesturing to a chair, and she sat down. You know, Sarah seemed a bit nervous and uncomfortable, which threw Darb off. You know, she was usually chill and calm and collected. You know, Darb, I'm just going to say it. We might need you to step in again. Step in again. Obviously, this is over, but I can't shake the feeling that something else is coming. You know, Darb basically does the reluctant leader thing. Like, yeah, you know, if there's trouble or stuff, like, I'll step up, but, like, Sarah tries to impress upon him, like, this was serious. Like, obviously, this went very well, but the bad feeling she has about other stuff coming up could be a lot worse. And spoiler alert, yes it is. I'm going to pause here because I have, in my next couple slides, basically an alternative boss fight, what I would call the hard mode for the final boss fight of this session. Basically, you fight two monsters, Bellatar, the elf dude, as well as a giant scorpion, which is actually from the book, the original monster. And I hope I have the stat block in here. All right, for the scorpion stat block, as usual, the noteworthy aspects. It has an AC of 15, natural armor, hit points of 52 or 70-10 plus 14, multi-attack, which I think this is the first creature to have that. No, wait, the owlbear did. But, yeah, in this case, it's a bit more interesting. Basically, it makes 3 attacks. 2 with its claws and 1 with its sting. The claw attack is +4 to hit, reach 5 feet, damage 6 points of damage or 1d8 plus 2 bludgeoning damage, and the creature is grappled with an escape DC of 12. The scorpion has 2 claws, each of which can grapple only 1 target. So yeah, it could grab 2 people if it wanted to. And then the sting attack, which is also a concerning thing. It's +4 to hit, reach 5 feet, hit for 7 or 1d10 plus 2 piercing damage, and the target must make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, taking 22 or 40-10 poison damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. So yeah, this thing is very dangerous. So, doing the alternative boss fights, Bellatar and the giant scorpion. Darb and Bellatar's surprise round. Really quick on the map there, you can see, Darb start and Kima start. DM is Darb's movement for that turn. So I'll use DM or D1 to illustrate movement. Again, I know in the last couple sessions I do that a lot, and there are a lot of characters in that. But yeah, it's just establishing that. So Bellatar once again, bow attack twice. He missed Darb both times, and Darb used the spell Shield. Basically, it's a reaction. You add 5 to your AC. Bellatar smirks, basically, chuckling at, "Oh, you had to use magic to deflect my arrows." And then Darb hit him with Booming Blade for 14 damage. Basically, Darb's thing was move around and stomp and rush Bellatar, avoiding the arrows and getting in an attack. And really quick, I did go back to after the ward battle to make sure all the stats and stuff were correct, so that I ran this, clear. Alright, turn number 1. Bellatar was first in the rotation this time. Sword attack twice, missed 2 times, damage from Booming Blade, 5 force damage. Basically, the Booming Blade cantrip, you make a weapon attack. If it connects, then the person takes, I want to say 1d8 of force damage, up to, whatever. Takes so much force damage if they consciously move themselves. This means, you cannot go, "Oh, hey, I'm going to hit you with Booming Blade and then shove you." They have to move themselves. And because Darb's using a glaive, he has an extra 5 feet of reach, so that's why he had to move in closer to get to him. Just to be clear. Alright, Scorpion then moves. Basically, it popped out of the muddy soup, moved to Darb, and attacked 3 times. Missed twice, hit once, and grappled Darb, dealing 6 damage. Basically, Giant Scorpion has big pincer claws, cha-cha, and the big stinger. Darb was grappled, DC 12 to escape, and he passed. So basically, the monster's squeezing him, and he's and he just, pulls the claw apart so he can slip out. Sarah moved, Tasha's Mind Whip, passed the save, dealing 4 damage to the Scorpion. I forgot to write that in, but it's based on numbers, I can tell that's what it was. Basically, it passed the save somehow. An intelligence saving throw. Crazy. Burgle tried to cast Animal Friendship on the Giant Scorpion, and it passed the Wisdom saving throw. Nat 20. So he gave Bardic Inspiration to Darb. basically, again, it's just part of the nature thing. I don't want to hurt creatures, so yeah. And because he got a nat 20, I'm going to say he's immune. And Burgle figures that. That was the best idea to come up with for nat 20 for that. He would move to the Scorpion and threw 3 attacks. 1 miss, 2 hits, dealing 14 damage. Basically, just punch, punch, kick, or whatever. And so I'm not being as cinematic with this. I'm just trying to get through this because I gotta go to sleep soon because I got some stuff going on in the morning. Nothing big, just a few appointments. Moving on to turn 2. Bellatar, sword attack ×2 on Darb. Darb once again uses shield, so clang, clang. Basically just imagine, a caster who just like throws up his hands and like runes appear in the air in front of him, or a glyph, symbol, and it stops, sword attacks from an elf dude trying to cut him down. Now I'm kind of hoping that I get in touch with like an animator and we can work out something for this stuff, because that would be cool to do this. Also, I'm hoping they work for free, because I'm not getting paid probably. But anyway, the giant scorpion then attacks. It goes after Kima, claw ×2 and sting. All of them hit, so Kima went down. So we'll say, she was, defensive martial arts stance, she tries to dip, duck, dodge, all that, but unfortunately she's not quick enough. First it's the scorpion stinger that just goes wham, like right in the head or something like that, stunning her, and then just like claw snip, like nothing dramatic, like permanent damage, like cutting her in half or something like that, just, oh hey, you got squeezed hard and sensing that you're lifeless now, it dropped her into the mud. Darb, he activated his rage and he attacked the scorpion. Like basically he roared in fury seeing Kima fall and slash at it with the glaive, and he missed. Sarah cast Tasha's Mind Whip, like desperate, like please let this work. The scorpion failed, taking 9 damage and having a limited action. So it can move, or it can attack. Or it can take a whatever regular action. It's going to attack whenever its turn comes up. Burgle, move to Kima, cure wounds, bardic inspiration, Darb. Basically just crap. Just like grab her hand, just healed her up for 12 HP. And then, yeah, Kima, basically she lost 19 HP, taking her up to 12, and then she took another 26 points of damage. So really, she wasn't like as close to Oblivion as Sarah was, but she was close to Oblivion, I would say. Kima used a key point to disengage for Step of the Wind, which makes disengage, dash, or something else action a bonus action, leaving her free to use the Dragon Breath action for 7 damage on the Scorpion. We'll say like electricity or fire or something. I forget which element I used, and it doesn't really matter. This goes into 4 turns, really. So, and we're on turn 3. Bellatar, sword attack Darb. Sword attack ×2, 1 hit, 10 damage. Basically, the damage was halved because of rage, and rage reduces bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And yeah, giant scorpion attacked Darb 1 time because of Tasha's effect, Tasha's Mind Whip effect. For here, the Tasha thing is like, oh, even if you have 3 attacks, you get 1 attack. I think I mess it up later and do like, okay, like you can do all of your attacks normally, but that's it. There's no like official ruling that I know for this, but I feel like if someone is hit with Tasha's Mind Whip, like 1 attack is fair. But also, this is a boss fight, so I mean, like, they gotta be tough. So it's a toss-up, Alright, Dark Glaive attacked the Scorpion for 13 damage, taking it down to 5. Sarah cast Magic Missile, level 1. The Scorpion for 6 damage, Scorpion down, and then 2 damage to Bellatar. basically, you roll however many d4s plus 1 damage. And that was the best breakdown that I had. And like, because I'll let players know, like, oh, hey, like, this thing's at 5 HP. So if you hit it for 6, if you have another separate attack, it can hit the other thing. So I had 6 damage on 2 die, and then 2 damage on the other die. Just to be clear. Burgle cast Shatter on Bellatar for 4 damage because he passed the save. Basically pulled out his flute, hit a high note. Yeah. Kima still 12 HP. Dart attack Bellatar, hitting him for 5 damage. Bellatar is currently sitting at 22 HP. Bellatar, still like mad and defending, the Eternal Pool. Goes after Darb. Sword attack times 2, miss both times. Darb didn't have to use shield that time. Basically, just imagine, swordsman going up against a spearman, and basically the spearman just like roaring in rage and deflecting the blows. Like, Bellatar wasn't intimidated. Like, he's an undead golem, basically. Like, he's he's gonna attack no matter what. And then, Dark Glaive attacked Bellatar for 11 damage, taking him down to his 11 points of health that were left. So Sarah gets the final attack in with Tasha's Mind Whip for 14 damage. He failed to save. Combat over. The cinematic end of this, like the end of the Resident Evil games, whenever you shoot the tyrant with the rocket launcher. Leon says, game over. Claire says, you lose, big guy, etc., etc. Sarah just muttered to herself, this ends here. She concentrated even harder, the energy sank into Bellatar's head, and he ultimately exploded. What I've gone with, like, visually myself is, like, I imagine dark purple, like a bright purple energy just encircles someone's head and just, like, hits them, goes into their mind, whatever. In this case, went into him and he exploded because he was concentrating really hard. And also, that's a cool cinematic end to a bad guy. Last couple of slides here. Post-combat, the party reported in with Professor Lang. Basically, we got out of the swamp just fine, like I did in the other version. This is like Monday, Tuesday afterwards. She was upset about their reckless actions, though things did seem to be calming down. Professor Lang said, I will make the proper reports, but you will not discuss this outside of this office. Are we clear? Like, obviously she appreciates their work, but it was a really bad idea to go out there yourselves. But she understands, because she talked to her as we were talking. Well, him being a good dude was able to convince her it was a fine idea. Darb and Kima talk afterwards. Again, it's just a bit of cinematic stuff. Darb saying, I just wanted to check in, how you feeling? Darb asked. Kima looked around, and seeing that there was like nobody nearby, she was like, I was really scared. Dark, it was dark and it was scary, and I want to say thanks for protecting me. Kima looked at Dark, what about your rage? Like, basically, she's talking about whenever she actually did die, was downed. It's like when Sarah was downed on this row stage, like, the darkness, the, tunnel of light, etc., etc. That's what she's talking about. I didn't make that very clear, but I am now. And then Darb talking about his rage, he gave a nervous chuckle and he looked at her, with an awkward smile. I felt invincible. It was a real rush. I just need to practice with it. And Kima not like, she got that vibe. She worked with some barbarians in the past, so she had some idea on the power of rage. But she also had some concerns because, like, I didn't put that in the post-combat scenes before, but like, Darb needed a minute to calm down after, the fights. Like, he was doing that heavy breathing, like, And like it took him a few seconds to calm down. You know, so Kima just, you know, like puts her hands on his head, and she looks like deep into his eyes and like, do not let it consume you, Darb. You know, because she doesn't want to see him lost to the darkness of being a barbarian. And I get that, and I appreciate that. Like a couple more slides after this. The Shadow. Basically, this takes place whenever, you know, Sarah and Darb were talking in his dorm. You know, Sarah just musing over some of the stranger incidents of the year. You know, how did some of those things get corrupted? You know, the frogs, sure, you know, they're in the Sedgemoor. But the chest, a stew, theater props? You know, as Sarah talks, the audience sees a hooded figure doing various things. You know, applying some of the ooze to the chest, you know, like crazy. You know, another scene has a kitchen staff member taking a break, you know, smoke break outside and getting knocked out. Then returning to the kitchen and adding something to the stew. You know, and the scene of the figure applies the ooze to the owlbear. You know, a final scene, figure staring into the now clear pool. Well, you know, applying the ooze to the owlbear. Basically, the way that I'm going to say it worked out is, you know, Mergaxer, or the person who is posing as him at this point, you know, did it during the show, and the knight had stumbled upon them, and that's what led to, oh no, you know, the fight. And then the final scene, you know, a figure staring into the now clear pool. You know, I'll have to move on to something else. You know, it's a grung in this case, so it is Mergaxer, the character himself. Because having gone through the whole campaign, I do know that he is currently alive. It's kind of a mess, I feel like, the story, and I'll get into it later whenever we get into later parts, but yeah, just, he is alive, so they've messed up his plans. They may or may not be on his radar, I don't know, we'll see. DM notes. Brad ideas. You know, yeah, the hooded figure, you know, that we see in the other scene seems to be a dwarf. You know, at the pool, it's a grong, Mergaxer himself. Basically, you know, I just have the dwarf character, like, in a hood for the other scenes, so then you have some, like, could it be another student, potentially? Like, I'm gonna try and work that in if I actually get a campaign going with other people. The final boss note. You know, falls into the Sedgemoor, blood may attract more monsters, or the warders return. I say this to help justify the corruption dissipating, and all the creatures are cured. You know, they were attracted to the pool and drank in the cleansing solution. Basically, this is a bit obscure, but like earlier on, in like session 2 or 3, I think it was, they said that, you know, it had a sweet taste or smell to it, so that's what attracted, you know, creatures to it potentially earlier. The cleansing stuff, we'll say, has like a similar kind of effect, like it has a nice smell to it, so the creatures will come, you know, the corrupt creatures will come and drink it in and be cured of the ooze. Other creatures that drink it, it will just cure whatever normal sick stuff they have, because, you know, creatures are going to be sick in the swamp. And then the scorpion logic was basically, it's a beast monster. Whatever hurts you most is you are going to attack. Darb is big and scary and roaring, but whenever you got a goblin girl like slamming into your side, you're going to attack that. Just to justify that. Like beasts are not going to be logical like human characters. They're not going to go, oh, I got to take out the healer or I got to take out the wizard. They're going to go after whatever is hurting them most in the moment. And for more content, I actually put the slide in this show this time. For more content, check out the YouTube channel, which you should be on, potentially. YouTube.com/hero1922. I have a few series. The Strixhaven story, obviously, the Emerald Vanguard campaign. I was a player in recap sessions. I have 11 episodes for that. It's from a couple years back. If you are on YouTube, you can check out Spotify, Brad the DM. And if you care to play, comment below or hit me up on Spotify, etc. I gotta double check this stuff and I gotta upload some stuff. I'm hoping to have a system of like get through each year of Strixhaven and then upload the videos to Spotify. So, you know, I have a good flow of stuff. And it'll give me time to work on new videos while I'm uploading the stuff to Spotify, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm kind of a lazy burnout. So, I haven't been as good with uploading this stuff, as you can see, you know, the timing for the playlist, or, you know, if you're on Spotify, it has been a couple of weeks since I uploaded the last episode, which was either 3 or 4. But yeah, I don't have any foreshadowing stuff in this episode for year 2. I do have a bit of an epilogue, and I will, you know, have an outline basically for that, or I'll have an outline for that. I was going to say, I might talk about it normally like I did before, but I feel like outlining the stuff could be of value to some people, and that's why I'm doing it like this. So yeah, but that is the official end to year 1. It was a blast. I look forward to year 2, and I'll talk about that, and I'll probably have like a build up to year 2 video also. But yeah, that's it for now. So until next time, everyone, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, and of course remember, every character, every NPC, every DM has a story to tell. And I, Valiant Bradley James, the DM, declare this session over.